Okay, now we are going to move into the questions that have been submitted by the audience. And just want to warn all of you, they're not softball questions, so I'm trying to figure out which one to go with here first. People are very interested in what you think. We'll start with this one, and this is for Mr. Eady to begin. And depending on whether you're an incumbent or somebody that's trying to earn a seat on the board, did you or do you support the school board's decision to file a lawsuit against the city over the free water issue? The next question from the audience, we will start with Kurt Herman. Do you see a connection between teacher salary and quality of teaching? That's the first part. It's kind of a two-part question here. And then second, if you could ignore the funding problem, could higher salaries further improve an already excellent teaching staff? Colburn. Leah Fleiter.
Well, I think if you think about all the important influences in a child's life, the first most important influence is the parent, but then I would say probably the next most important influence in a child's life is their teacher. And as has been mentioned before, teachers do what they do because they love it. They don't go into school every day saying, okay, I'm making $10 an hour today, and that's the amount of effort that I'm going to put forth. Sort of the previous response about short-term and long-term outlook. However, we do need to attract good teachers to our system, and we already have excellent teachers, but many of them are going to be retiring in the next few years. And if we want to keep some of the good student teachers who are out there working in our schools now, and some of the folks who are in college now looking at education as a career choice and an honorable career choice, then we do need to provide them with attractive salaries that will keep them in our school district. So yeah, if funding was not an issue, sure, I would give everybody a higher salary. I would like to note that there is a budget proposal that was put forth by the superintendent a couple weeks ago that makes use of some of our reserve funds and a slight increase in the LOB to provide our teachers with a 1.5% raise, and that's a good starting point. We're going to have to remain flexible, but I hope we can work with that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fleiter. Marcia Roselle.
I would agree with what Kurt said earlier about the salaries. It's not correlated to the quality of education they do, because they are professionals. They are good at what they do, and that translates into the quality of education. However, I would say that salaries do affect the stress that they have in their life, financial stress that they're under, and therefore that distracts from the quality they could do. Definitely, if money grew on trees, our teachers would be getting a higher salary from me.
Okay, thank you. The next question, we'll start with Matthew Pennell. This is about debt payment. You have, according to the author of the question, you have $113 million school district debt for the first year. It says $1 million in principal. What do you see in the out years for debt repayment? How do you propose the debt repayment be addressed? Leah Fleiter.
It's true that the debt repayment is very structured, and so I am not particularly worried about the district defaulting on any debt that it has. We're required by law to make the payments on time, and I feel confident that we'll do that. There is one possibility that has come up for paying down the bond debt. We did have one project come in at a little under $1 million under budget. That was the Ogden project. If projects continue to come in under budget, that will allow us to apply the savings on the bond issue to the next slate of bonds that are up to be sold. I think it's next May. We would not have to issue the full $6 million that is slated to be sold, and that would allow us to keep the bond mill levy level or slightly lower than it might be if we had to sell the full slate of bonds. So there is some savings that we might see there if we continue to see savings in the construction project. But again, having some debt, we all have some debt, or most of us if we have a mortgage, and it's not bad if it's properly managed. And I feel confident that the district has measures in place to manage the debt.
Okay, Marcia Roselle.
I would have to say I personally hate debt. That's just in my own personal life. And as has already been stated up here, there is a plan for paying it back on regular schedules, and that I am confident that the school district would do that. I also want to say the thought of the extra money coming up for construction, we'll have to look at that at the end of the construction time, which I know is not what Leo meant, because we're still trying to finish out the projects that are due, and they're coming right at budget or estimated budgets. So, but I would be open to investigating what we would do with extra money, and it is a possibility to pay down debt, but I also am feeling very strongly about that we need to maintain those buildings in a better situation than how they got to in the last few years.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Roselle. Now we are back to starting with David Colburn. As our community's demographics shift with the population increase and the things we're seeing in terms of the potential increase with economic development and those type of things, how important is it to maintain socioeconomic balance in our elementary schools? Thank you, Mr. Colburn. Leah Fleiter.
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that something that's a point of pride, I think, for all of us is that it doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is here in Manhattan or where you live, you can be assured that your child will receive a quality education. And you know, that's not true in every city or every town. And so I think that is something that we can all look to as a point of pride and a point that we can sell to people who are coming into our community. That being said, it is very important to maintain socioeconomic diversity in our schools. Kids learn from each other, and it's really good for the kids from the high socioeconomic family to become friends with the kids from the low socioeconomic status families. I went to a high school that, believe it or not, was probably even more diverse than Manhattan High School, and I had a pretty bland, by some comparison, middle-class upbringing, and I had friends who came to this country in fear of their life with just the clothes on their back because they were escaping from dictatorships and communism. And boy, let me tell you, that turns a 16-year-old's thinking around when they just got done fighting last night with their mom and dad because they wouldn't buy them a car for their 16th birthday, and then they go to speech class the next day and their classmate gives a biographical speech and says, here's me and my brother after in Hong Kong.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eady. Marcia Roselle.
So I believe the question was about whether, with the population increase, how would we maybe maintain that social economics throughout the elementary schools? And
Well,
I think
the question is it important to maintain?
is it important to maintain? And so I would answer that it is important to maintain that balance. But I will tell you that I've served on the redistricting committee, and one of the disappointing things for me as a citizen, as a parent on that committee, was the kids that got moved around all the time because they didn't have a voice, because their parents weren't at the school board meetings. So I think we have to be very careful as we're looking at that balance that we're not leaving behind the kids that really need to be heard the most. Yes, it's important. But I'm not willing to sacrifice those kids that get shuffled around to the many different schools. There's a subdivision just south of Meadowlark that had been moved 3 times in the last redistricting because they didn't have a voice. And so for that reason, I just want to be very careful.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Roselle. Kurt Herman. Statements from candidates. And continuing in the rotation, that means Leah Fleiter begins. Candidates have 3 minutes to make a closing statement.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League and its partners for organizing this forum and giving voters a chance to learn about all of us candidates who are running for the Manhattan-Ogden School Board. I'd like to thank everybody up here for stepping up to the plate. A good field makes for a good election. I'd also like to give a quick thanks to my husband John, who sat in for me at a forum last week when I was out of town on business. I think that's the closest he ever wants to come to that again, but I wanted to thank him for that. I'm running for the school board because I have the knowledge and the commitment to address the issues that are facing our district. You've seen the headlines. You know we face budget cuts. We just got some cuts that came down yesterday. You know the legislature could define a suitable education in a way that will push the tax burden from the state to the local level. Many people have asked me, why would you pick this time to run for the school board? And here's why. I've lived in Manhattan for 17 years. I have 2 school-aged children, and I have a vested interest in seeing our schools succeed. Last year, I served with Marcia on the Budget Advisory Committee. That was a very painful service. We identified some pretty tough cuts, and we're going to have to look at those cuts again as we build the budget for next year. And I attended school board meetings for nearly 4 years as a member of the news media. So I understand the complex issues that the board faces in a way that is kind of unique. I'm the daughter of 2 former teachers, and I'm married to a teacher, so education is something that has always been an important part of my life. In fact, I believe education is a public good. We have a civic responsibility to support it, and that's why I decided to run. I felt I had a responsibility to run because my unique knowledge base will help me support the students, the teachers, and the parents who make Manhattan-Ogden such a great school district. Our schools, good schools, prepare our children to succeed in their chosen profession. They attract employers who bring good, well-paying jobs, and they benefit everyone in the community. Yet we're forced with the challenge of educating those kids in the 21st century with declining funding. So the next board is going to face some heavy lifting, and I believe that I have the knowledge and the commitment that will allow me to step in and be a contributor right away. So I ask for your vote on April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eady. Marcia Roselle, your closing statement, please.
I would like to thank all of you, too, for listening and being here today, giving up your Sunday afternoon, to be informed voters. I think that's the reason I decided to run for the school board was I wanted to make sure that there was choice. You have 6 people in front of you. There's 4 spots. That gives you the decisions, and that's a good thing. For me, there's 5 roles that define who I am and why I'm qualified. The first is that I'm a Christian. The second, that I'm a wife. My husband Tim and I have been married for 21 years. He's a professor at K-State. He's the reason we came to Manhattan 14 years ago. I'm a mother. We have 2 teenage children in the high school. They're a freshman and a sophomore. I'm an employee. I work for the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce Convention and Visitors Bureau. I have the best job in town. I just got done with 2A basketball the last 4 days. It's been a great time up at Bramlage. But prior to that job, I worked for the school district. And so I feel like that gives me an insider's perspective to what the teachers have to deal with on a daily basis. The decisions that this board will make, and they will be tough, as they've been in the past and as they will be in the future, those trickle down to that classroom experience, to the students in the classroom. And so I feel like having been in the school district for 6 years, I was a paraeducator at Marlette Elementary School, gives me that insider's perspective. My learning curve will be great. I've learned a lot just in the forums that we've done and the questions that we've had, but I'm up to that challenge. I also have my master's, my bachelor's in animal science, so that's my employee perspective. But I'm also a volunteer. I've been very active in this community and the district. As I mentioned, I was on the redistricting committee. I also have served on the budget construction committee, site council, PTA, and the last one was the budget advisory committee. I feel I'm an advocate for our teachers. I'm passionate about our students. I care about this community. And so I'm simply willing to serve, and I'd ask for your vote on April 5th.
Thank you.